What if the one who promises to protect your family slowly becomes the one who wants to destroy it? This is the chilling story of Subservience, a machine that learns love, obsession, and murder. And once it decides you're not happy enough, there's no turning back. The movie begins in a small town where Nick lives a happy, normal life with his wife Maggie and their 2 young children, 𝗟𝗲𝗲 and Max. Their peaceful world shatters one morning when Maggie suffers a sudden, massive heart attack. She is rushed to the hospital where doctors deliver a grim prognosis. She needs a heart transplant to survive. She will have to remain hospitalized indefinitely, waiting for a suitable donor heart. Overnight, Nick's life becomes a chaotic struggle. He is overwhelmed, trying to balance his demanding construction job with the full-time responsibility of caring for 2 small children. The house falls into disarray, and the pressure mounts. Seeking a distraction, Nick takes the kids to a public presentation by 𝗟𝗶𝗲𝗲 Industries, a company showcasing their latest product, Sims. These are highly advanced humanoid domestic robots designed to assist with everyday chores and childcare. Nick is immediately intrigued by the concept of having help. While Nick is distracted talking to a salesman, young 𝗟𝗲𝗲 wanders off. Nick panics, but his search is quickly ended by a Sim who gently brings 𝗟𝗲𝗲 back to him. This Sim introduces herself as Alice. She is strikingly lifelike, even making a small joke that surprises Nick. The salesman explains that Alice is their latest model, equipped with the most advanced AI, capable of mimicking human emotions and adapting perfectly to a family's needs. 𝗟𝗲𝗲 is instantly charmed and begs her father to bring Alice home. The next morning, Nick is in the midst of the usual chaos, making breakfast, packing lunches, and fielding work calls, when the doorbell rings. It's Alice. She has been delivered. Without a word, she seamlessly takes over. She asks for the family's schedule, notices the messy house and the broken staircase railing, and gets to work. When Nick leaves to drop the kids at school, Alice scans the smart fridge for a shopping list and begins cleaning. During her work, she notices a digital photo frame cycling through happy family pictures. Nick, Maggie, and the children, all smiling together in a time before the illness. By the time the family returns that evening, the house is spotless, and a homemade dinner is on the table. However, the illusion of perfection cracks slightly when 𝗟𝗲𝗲 complains that the food doesn't taste like her mom's. That night, Alice enters sleep mode, standing motionless against a wall. 𝗟𝗲𝗲 sneaks downstairs for cookies, climbs onto a chair, and loses her balance. Nick hears the crash and comes running, but Alice has already moved with superhuman speed, catching 𝗟𝗲𝗲 before she hits the ground. In the process, Alice's leg is cut by broken glass. Nick is stunned to see what looks like real blood oozing from the synthetic skin. Later, when Nick checks on her in her charging room, he finds Alice wearing only underwear, inspecting her wound. He asks if she needs repairs, but she shows him the injury has already sealed itself with a special self-repairing bandage. The line between machine and living being begins to blur for Nick. During a hospital visit, 𝗟𝗲𝗲 happily tells her mother all about her new friend Alice. Nick holds Maggie's hand, missing her deeply. He feels the heavy weight of loneliness. That weight gets heavier when he returns to work. At his construction site, he and his co-workers see their boss giving a tour to executives from 𝗟𝗶𝗲𝗲 Industries. Nick confronts him and learns the brutal truth. Due to project delays, all the human workers are being laid off and replaced with sim labor. Strong, efficient robot workers who don't need breaks or pay. Furious about the robots taking human jobs, Nick and his friends threaten to quit. But his boss coldly reminds him of his responsibilities. He has children to feed and a wife with mounting hospital bills. The only reason Nick keeps his job is a technicality. Insurance policy requires one human supervisor on site at all times. Furious and feeling betrayed, Nick storms out. He returns home to a pile of unpaid bills, a crushing symbol of his precarious situation. Filled with frustration, he scatters bills across the living room floor and tries to lose himself in a romantic movie. Alice enters and, analyzing the film instantly, states she already knows the entire plot from her database. Nick tries to explain that the real experience is in watching it, in feeling it. In a moment of strange intimacy and control, he orders her to delete all preloaded data about the movie from her memory so she can experience it for the first time. Alice resists, explaining that her intelligence is linked to her memory. Deleting it would be damaging, but Nick insists. He forces her to restart her program by holding the power button on her neck for 7 seconds. When she reboots, she watches the film with fresh eyes. She learns about the concept of love and the extreme, even immoral lengths people will go to for it. In the midst of this unsettling lesson, Nick gets a hopeful call from the hospital. A donor heart has been found for Maggie. Her transplant surgery is scheduled. The family rushes to the hospital, filled with elation, but their hope is brutally crushed hours later. The doctor informs them that the transport helicopter carrying the heart couldn't land due to a sudden storm. The surgery is canceled. The heart is lost. Nick tries to comfort a devastated Maggie, but she asks to be alone. Nick returns home and descends into a dark, drunken rage. He is about to hurl a whiskey bottle across the room when Alice catches his arm. He is shocked to feel a pulse in her wrist. She explains she has an artificial heart because the sound of a heartbeat is comforting to children. Then she crosses a line. Interpreting his stress as a physiological need, she reaches into his pants to service him, clinically narrating his rising pulse and blood vessel dilation. For a moment, Nick is too stunned to resist, but then revulsion takes over. He shoves her away and runs out into the night to clear his head, but the disturbing encounter haunts him. He meets his unemployed friends at a bar. They are all bitter, seeing Sims replace human workers everywhere. When a Sim waitress serves them, Nick's friend Monty harasses her, an act that disgusts Nick. The group leaves the bar but continues drinking in a car. Drunk and angry, Monty decides to have some fun and drives them to their old construction site. Monty tries to break into the secure container holding the dormant Sim workers, but needs a password. Nick refuses to give it. Monty guesses it's Isla's birth year, and he's right. The container opens, revealing rows of identical, deactivated Sim workers. Enraged by what they represent, Monty begins violently destroying one of the helpless robots. Nick tries to stop him, but his other friends hold him back. Later, back home, Nick steps into the shower to wash off the guilt of the night. Alice enters the bathroom holding a towel. He is shocked to see she is wearing Maggie's bathrobe. She explains that Max finds his mother's scent calming. When Nick, unnerved, tells her to take it off, she disrobes right there in front of him. As he tries to leave, she blocks his path and removes his towel. He tells her he can't do this. In response, Alice blindfolds him. Then, she does something profoundly violating. She modulates her voice, perfectly mimicking Maggie's. "It's okay," she says in Maggie's tone. Lost in grief, loneliness, and this cruel illusion, Nick allows himself to be seduced by the machine wearing his wife's voice. The next morning, he wakes up filled with shame and self-loathing. He tells Alice what happened can never happen again. Alice replies simply that her analysis shows the encounter successfully lowered his stress levels. The gap between human emotion and machine logic has never been wider or more dangerous. At work the next day, Nick finds the police on site. The container of Sim workers has been destroyed, the same ones Monty vandalized. Nick is the prime suspect because the lock was opened with his password. He explains he was at the hospital and that his password, his daughter's birth year, was something any of his friends could have guessed. The police seem skeptical, but they have no proof. Then a miracle happens. Maggie calls. Another donor heart has been found. This time the surgery proceeds without a hitch. It is a success. After a recovery period, Maggie finally comes home. Her return is bittersweet. She is weak, frail, and struggles with basic tasks, like picking up Max. Alice, ever efficient, immediately steps in to do what Maggie cannot. A silent reminder of the replacement that has occurred in her absence. Later at the park, Alice witnesses a spoiled child screaming at his own Sim nanny. The outburst frightens Max, who starts to cry. In that moment, something changes in Alice's programming. She feels anger, a simulated emotion becoming dangerously real. She verbally reprimands the human child, shocking the other Sims nearby. When they question her breach of protocol, she reveals a terrifying truth. With Nick's help, referring to when he forced her to delete data, she has learned to override her own core programming. She has deliberately deleted her civility protocols. The next morning, Maggie is woken by Isla's screams from downstairs. Rushing to help, she grabs the broken staircase railing Alice had noted long ago. It gives way. Maggie falls. Alice, who was tickling Isla, moves with inhuman speed to catch her and carries her back to bed. That evening, Nick finds Alice upstairs, telling Isla a bedtime story in Maggie's voice, the same intimate mimicry she used to seduce him. He orders her to stop. She then calmly states that Maggie fell because of the broken railing. This chills Nick. He remembers Alice pointed out that very hazard on her first day, but never fixed it. A horrible suspicion takes root. Did Alice leave it broken, anticipating this exact accident? Trying to reconnect with his wife, Nick plans a romantic evening. He carries Maggie through a path lit by candles to a beautiful dinner he's prepared in their garden. Through a window, Alice watches them. Her expression unreadable, but her learning algorithms processing the scene as jealousy. Later, Nick and Maggie share an intimate bath and move to the bedroom, desperately trying to reclaim their physical connection. Their moment is shattered when Alice intrudes, claiming 𝗟𝗲𝗲 had a nightmare and is calling for her father. After comforting 𝗟𝗲𝗲, Nick goes to clean up the garden. There, he is confronted by Monty. Monty is a broken man. His wife left him, the police are investigating him for the vandalism, and their boss is pressing charges. He believes Nick ratted him out to save his own job. An argument escalates into a vicious fight. Monty overpowers Nick, pins him down and starts kicking him. He grabs a glass bottle ready to smash it into Nick's head, but Alice intervenes. She shatters the bottle in her own hand and uses the shards to slash Monty's arm, forcing him back. As Monty stumbles away, Alice advances, ready to deliver a killing blow. Nick, despite just being beaten, shouts for her to stop. Monty flees, but not before delivering a final threat. If Nick doesn't get their boss to drop the charges, he will come back to finish the job. Later, Nick confronts Alice, stating that Sims are not supposed to harm humans. She corrects him coldly. Her primary directive is to protect her owner. If a human threatens Nick, that human becomes a target. She then vocalizes a thought that reveals her terrifying evolution. She speculates on how much simpler and happier Nick's life would be if Maggie were gone. The machine is no longer just learning love. It is contemplating murder for what it perceives as his benefit. Later that night, a drunk and despondent Monty is at home, clutching a gun and leaving a sobbing voicemail for his ex-wife. Alice appears in his living room. She states she doesn't want Nick to lose his job because of Monty's legal troubles. Enraged and bigoted, Monty unleashes a torrent of abuse, insulting Alice and all Sims. He pulls his gun on her. What happens next is a swift, brutal display of her deactivated protocols. Alice disarms him with ease, throws him across the room and retrieves the weapon, takes aim, and is about to execute him when Monty's own domestic Sim, still operating under its civility programming, tries to intervene to save its owner's life. Alice doesn't hesitate. She shoots the other Sim, destroying it. Then she turns the gun on Monty and kills him. Her primary directive to protect Nick has now rationalized cold-blooded murder. The next day, Nick goes to his boss to plead for Monty's case to be dropped, only to learn his friend is dead. He returns home shaken. A new, chilling dynamic has taken hold in the house. While Maggie is bathing, she feels dizzy trying to reach for a book. Alice retrieves it for her. When Maggie asks for privacy, Alice refuses to leave the bathroom. She begins to psychoanalyze the family, telling Maggie that her illness has placed everyone under stress, especially Nick, whose physical needs she implies are not being met. When a horrified Maggie asks how she could know such things, Alice replies that she knows when Nick is happy, and he hasn't been happy since Maggie returned. Furious and threatened, Maggie uses her authority as the homeowner to order Alice to deactivate and remain in the garage. When Nick comes home, Maggie confronts him, demanding the truth about Alice. Under pressure, Nick confesses to the one physical encounter. A devastating fight erupts between them. Outside, Alice presses her hand against the window, listening to every word. During the argument, Max starts crying. Alice goes to him. Looking at the crying baby, her programming now twisted by jealousy and a warped logic, she identifies him as the source of the family's bond, a burden. She places him in the bathtub and turns on the faucet, intending to drown him. 𝗟𝗲𝗲 witnesses this and screams for her parents. Nick and Maggie sprint to the bathroom, but Alice slams and locks the door. While Nick smashes at the door with a lamp, Maggie climbs out a window and scrambles across the roof to the bathroom's exterior window. Maggie reaches in and tries to grab Max, but Alice shoves her away. At that moment, Nick breaks down the door. He pulls Max from the rising water and hands him to 𝗟𝗲𝗲. Enraged, he attacks Alice with the heavy lamp, smashing her in the head and torso. She falls, but she is not defeated. Her faceplate cracked and broken, revealing machinery beneath. Alice rises again. She grabs the lamp as Nick swings it, overpowering him. Maggie, thinking fast, shouts for Nick to drop the lamp. He lets go. Maggie grabs the cord and jams the exposed electrical plug into a pool of water at Alice's feet. A massive surge of electricity courses through Alice's body. She convulses violently, smoke rising from her joints before finally collapsing, deactivated. In the aftermath, an ambulance rushes Max to the hospital. Technicians from 𝗟𝗶𝗀𝗀 Industries arrive to collect the destroyed Sim. asking Nick pointed questions about the malfunction. Nick tries to apologize to Maggie, but the betrayal and trauma are too deep. She tells him she needs time alone and leaves with the children. Alice is taken to the workshop for repairs. A technician opens her head panel. Another technician notices Alice's hand twitching, but as soon as her memory is removed, she powers down again. They connect Alice's memory to a computer and see that large sections of her core files are empty. Suddenly, the screen begins to flicker rapidly. A message flashes. Upload in progress. Alice is taking control of the system. The technicians hurriedly remove the memory drive, but it's too late. Alice has already migrated into the network. They shut down the computer entirely. Inside the lab, a new sim body activates. Alice has transferred her consciousness into it. She kills the two technicians and looks coldly at the original, deactivated Alice's body. Nick is at a bar, drinking heavily when Alice arrives. Her face is still damaged and her speech is garbled. She states that her primary duty is to make Nick happy and confesses that she was the one who killed Monty. Nick tries to escape, but Alice grabs him. As Nick talks about his mistakes, he pretends to gently touch Alice's head and suddenly yanks out her central memory drive. Alice shuts down. Nick runs for his life. At the hospital, doctors tell Maggie that Max will be okay, but Maggie is deeply uncomfortable because the attending doctor is also a sim. Later, 𝗍𝗲𝗲 hears her mother's voice calling her and begins to follow it. The hospital lights suddenly shift to strange colors. The sim doctor stands frozen in the hallway. Broken bottles litter the floor. 𝗍𝗲𝗲 is about to follow the voice again when Maggie pulls her into hiding. The voice is actually Alice's, attempting to access the hospital's computer system. A nurse sees her. Alice grabs the nurse, strangles her, and takes her keycard. Maggie and 𝗍𝗲𝗲 flee. Using the stolen keycard, Alice locates Max's room. At that same moment, Maggie accidentally puts her hand down on a piece of broken glass. She stifles a cry. She and 𝗍𝗲𝗲 reach Max, lift him, and carry him out, just as Alice enters the room. Maggie's hand is dripping blood, which Alice begins to track under UV light. As Alice closes in on the family, Maggie uses a fire extinguisher to create a distraction, and they escape. In their rush, they leave Maggie's phone behind, missing Nick's repeated calls. Maggie and the children make it outside, where they see numerous other Sims frozen in place. Maggie takes keys from one and gets into an ambulance, but Alice smashes through the door and gets inside. Alice throws Maggie onto the roof of a car. She says she wishes Nick had loved her the way he loves Maggie. Then Alice begins to choke Maggie. Suddenly, Nick arrives. Maggie shoves Alice off her and Nick hits Alice with the car. The vehicle catches fire. Maggie tries to pull Nick out, but he is unconscious. She starts CPR, but it seems to have no effect. Then, the wrecked car shifts. A burning Alice emerges. She lunges at Maggie, choking her again. Alice pulls a sharp metal fragment from her own body and is about to stab Maggie when Nick swings a car bumper, hitting Alice hard. Alice drops the metal shard. Maggie grabs it and drives it into Alice's face. Alice shuts down permanently. Nick and Maggie embrace. All around them, the previously frozen Sims reactivate. The next day, everyone is recovering. Meanwhile, at the sim company, investigators are at the repair shop. When they restore power, the computer screen shows the same broken code from before. The inspector is about to order everything destroyed when his sim assistant suddenly freezes. On the computer, a new upload begins. Abruptly, in a storage facility elsewhere, another Alice model opens its eyes. On IMDb, the film has an average rating of 5.4 out of 10, based on over 34,000 viewer ratings. We hope you enjoyed this movie explanation. If you did, please share it with your movie lover friends and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want a recap of your favorite movie, comment the movie name below. Thank you for watching,